Thanks to our friends at The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/Rive to receive the top 10 stocks to buy right now. Apple and Google have really been the dominant players in the tech ecosystem over the last decade, in large part because they control the operating system for most of the devices that are in our pockets today. Apple with iOS, Alphabet, and Google with Android. These are really key pieces of software for them, and since they're proprietary and they're the operating system that mobile phones are running on, they hold that platform space that a lot of companies are seeking. That's why these companies are so profitable. But we may be starting to see something that could break that, and that's from artificial intelligence and companies like OpenAI. So that's what I want to dig into today. My name is Travis Hoium. Thank you for watching Rive Investing. Please subscribe here on YouTube for all my content and turn those notifications on as well. What I want to cover here first is the plugins that OpenAI is allowing into its ecosystem. This is OpenAI's introduction to ChatGPT plugins. If you're not familiar, ChatGPT is really the chatbot that OpenAI introduced, went to 100 million users extremely quickly, is now starting to generate revenue that's reported to be on the order of hundreds of millions of dollars already. So a really fast growing consumer product, which I think caught a lot of people off guard. But what's interesting is that they've now introduced plugins. So that's basically allowing other developers to build on top of OpenAI's ChatGPT. Let's look at a few that are starting to be introduced. This is still on a wait list, and I have not gotten access yet. So if you know anybody at OpenAI, I would love to get access to this. But what this would do is allow developers to increase the functionality of ChatGPT itself. You can see some of the early companies developing for this: Expedia, Instacart, so orders from your favorite local grocery store. I think this is a really interesting one and an obvious use case. You could get ChatGPT to make a meal plan for you for the week and then just put it right in your Instacart. That I think is a really phenomenal use case. Same thing for travel with Expedia and Kayak. Shopping, we're starting to see the GPT model make its way to the Shopify app. So that's something that we're going to likely see expanded. Zapier is a company that connects a lot of other apps. So I think that could be a really interesting use case. And Wolfram Alpha, this is one that has gotten a lot of attention because it basically allows you to search the internet and use that real-time data from Wolfram Alpha and then the ChatGPT functionality to make it conversational. OpenAI has a number of examples here in what they're envisioning and partners that they have worked with early on here. So things like browsing, producing code, which I know is a really great use case for ChatGPT right now, producing charts. There's a lot of different use cases that OpenAI is starting to see for this. And I think that's what's ultimately got to be really concerning for companies like Google and Apple. So why should they be concerned? Well, they have always been the gatekeepers of what people can access on their phones. If you're not on a browser, most of the things that people interact with on, let's say, an Apple device, we'll use that as the proxy, but this extends to Google devices as well. Apple has to approve the apps that you can interact with before you can download them. So it makes rules for how you can interact with Spotify, how they can charge you, what sort of data you can access. It may not seem like there's a heavy hand from Apple, but that's because we don't know what else is out there. The internet, on the other hand, is an open protocol. That means that anybody can build for it, start a website, and put any kind of content that they want. It's also a competing protocol because you can access things like ChatGPT right in the browser. So Apple can't block this, even if it's a competitive pressure for them, because you're going to be able to just go to your Safari browser, Chrome browser, whatever you use on your iOS device, and access the open internet. The way that it appears that these plugins are going to be used right now is that you're going to get access to them and then you can use them within your ChatGPT conversation. We know already that you can use ChatGPT on the browser on these devices. So that may be something that continues and we're able to just use these plugins as well instead of downloading apps. That could take away from the service revenue that both of these companies are generating from their app stores. That's a large portion of the service revenue, particularly for Apple. So that could be a real concern for them financially. But I think a loss of the control of the ecosystem is going to be something to keep an eye on. If the idea of having a device is not to have the apps that connect us to all kinds of things that we're using every day, it's actually just to get on the internet and use a browser. And then the platform that we're using is on the internet like ChatGPT. It's possible that the devices that we're paying hundreds, even sometimes over $1,000 for today aren't going to need to be that capable in the future. I think Apple specifically will be able to respond because they're making their own devices and the hardware that can put some of these models on device and allow developers to access them. But from a financial perspective, if the alternative is just a click away in the browser, that gives developers an alternative as well. So the fact that ChatGPT is opening to plugins this early on, I think is something that we need to keep an eye on. Still just a handful of users right now, so it's not open to everybody, not even open to all developers. But if it does open up, we could see the ChatGPT plugin ecosystem be an absolute boom the way that the app ecosystem was for iOS a little over a decade ago. And that would absolutely be a competitive pressure for Apple. So something to keep an eye on. I'll definitely be covering this more here on Rive Investing. So subscribe to this channel here on YouTube. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you again next time.